Do you want a floor chair or a pillow or
No,
anything?
this is very comfortable. Thank you.
Okay. Push this thing here and hope I don't. Am I still online?
Yes.
Okay. So we are wrapping up the end of the 12th chapter. And let's review what I feel is the most important part of it, which is right at the beginning, where Arjuna says, some say one should worship the Lord in his formless nature. Others say you should worship the Lord with a form. Tell me which is best. Krishna's answer is quite interesting. He says, essentially, both paths are valid. The two paths approach a person. But worshiping the Lord in his formless nature is difficult for the embodied, which means when we're ego identified. For them, it is better to worship the Lord with a form. So there's a lot wrapped up in this. From the standpoint of our practice, it implies a sequence. In the beginning, before our minds have attained any kind of a sattvic state, and we're deeply identified with the body, meaning I think I'm a person. We hear the Vedanta, it's okay, but it's philosophy. Does not resonate with my direct experience. Then worship the Lord with a form. Even in Yoga Sutra, one of the sutras in the first chapter, Patanjali says, the quickest and directest way to samadhi is Ishvara Pranidhana. Absolute surrender to Ishvara, the Lord, the ruler of. Then as the mind gets more and more sattvic through intense devotional practices, through selfless service, through our scripture study, we can tune up the mind. And we can drop everything. Both the ego and the personal form of God. All that's left is aham. Also, for many of us, sometimes we're in that exalted state when I'm very clear about my self nature. Aham Brahmasmi, I am that partless Brahma. But other times we get identified, and dropping the ego is difficult. And doing practices like who am I, or this world is all illusion, just too difficult. Then the teaching is, don't let philosophical inconsistency be a barrier to your peace of mind. I'm an Advaitan. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Brahman alone is real, the phenomenal world is an illusion. But if I'm broken-hearted because of a bad love affair, or a relative has died, or I'm fearful about this, that, and the other thing, and that's very real to me, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya is nonsense. Instead, I can't. He can. I think I'll let it. I turn my will and my life over to the care of God. The neat thing about Hinduism is you can put any kind of a face on the infinite. It's so cool. Any of you play video games? Yes?
Mm-hmm.
What do you call the character you have in the video game?
Avatar.
Yes. That is a Sanskrit word. An avatar is a divine incarnation of God. Krishna is an avatar. Lord Vishnu. Ram is an avatar of Vishnu. Tathatriya is an avatar of Lord Shiva. So it doesn't matter which avatar, Ganesh, Ram, Hanuman, anything. God is you understand God. God is you can relate to God. Remember back in an earlier chapter, Krishna said, in whatever way people approach me, so am I to them. Yesterday was the feast of the Blessed Virgin Mary, the Catholic Church. A whole lot of people have a much easier time relating to the Blessed Mother who takes care of us all. God the Father, he's a little scary to me. Mary, I can relate to. So, however you do that, and don't let the inconsistency with Advaita be a barrier to asking for help. Any thoughts on this before we get into where we are in the scripture? Swamiji used to say, the person who denies the existence of a personal God, yet is firmly identified with the personality, with the ego, with the body, is the greatest of fools, because you're left with nothing. And you don't have to have a name. To whom it may concern is a very good name for God. It can be God as I don't understand God. It's just fine. All right. We're on verse, did we start verse 16 last time or verse 15?
We started 16, but it's a series of attributes and we stopped midway.
All right, so let's do 16 all over again from the top. Did our bomber leave?
Yes, there were three. Three, yeah. Coordinated.
Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahma.
Anapeksha shuchir daksha udasino gatavyatha sarvarambha parityagi yo matbhakta samepriya. He who is free from wants, pure, alert, unconcerned, untroubled, renouncing all undertakings for commencements. He who is thus devoted to me is dear to me.
And we didn't finish this?
No.
Okay, let's take it from the top just for review. So here Krishna is saying, what are the qualities of head and heart that we're invited to work on? Now remember, God doesn't have favorites. There's no Krishna up there saying, well, I like Divya. She's just dear to me. Trevor, no, don't like him. There's no such God. I like to say, if you don't feel close to God, who moved? So we invoke God. We invoke mercy, forgiveness, presence, Shakti, Kripa, all those wonderful attributes of the divine by getting ourselves out of the way. I think I used the example of the car battery with the corrosion. Did I do that before we left?
Mhm.
Yes?
Yeah. I'm not that I remember.
It might have been in another class then. All right. So if you live in the East Coast, again, I'm not sure whether we're going to finally, I have to get a new image because cars keep changing. So in the old timey days, the battery posts on your battery would corrode in the cold weather and the damp. You go out to turn on your car and, well, nothing would happen. Open up the hood of the car. Sure enough, there's all this foamy stuff. And if you remember this,
I remember it. Yeah.
You're old. That's why
I
you
know.
remember.
That's why you remember it too.
Yes. So what you had to do, you would have a wire brush and you take the clampy terminal things off and you go to get all the crud off. Then you clamp them back onto the posts, go inside your car, and vroom, it would start right up. Why? Because the corrosion impeded the flow of electricity. That's what happens to you and me. The human mind can be a conductor of God force. Or it can be an insulator to God force. What is the insulator? What gets in the way? The opposite of these qualities, meaning the little self in its various forms. My fear, my resentment, my regret, my worry about the future, anger, competition with others, jealousy, control issues. We can go on and on and on. That's just crud in my psyche. So we practice these qualities in order to brush off the crud. So we're connected to source. So let's go through them. We started last time, but we'll review. First one.
He who is free from wants.
Yes. So we need to make a distinction between preferences and insistence. Ego tells us, I have needs. If I don't get this, I won't be happy. So-and-so is not meeting my needs. This person is not meeting my needs. That is a bold-faced lie. Not only does your mind tell you that, but now the psychologists are telling you that. I'll tell you what our needs are: food, clothing, and shelter. Medicine, if you're really sick. All the rest are wants.
What about love?
Love is a want. You are love. Get it from the outside. Children, it's a bit different. Children need these things, but constant attention, the constant approval, this sort of thing. But as adults, the love you seek is your own self nature. Have you been in love?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it feels really good, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's a taste of yourself. That's the mind feeling so secure, so at rest, so open and vulnerable. We just use the other person as a way to get that feeling. That makes sense. Now, what's paradoxical about human love? Many people speak love with their lips and have lust in their hearts. That's what Swamiji used to say. Meaning, I want something from the other person. I remember someone saying to me, well, Jim, it must have been love. It hurts so bad. Love doesn't hurt. Desire hurts. Craving hurts. Longing hurts. Love is blissful. Love is your self nature. Love is of the nature of God, if we want to look at it devotionally. As long as we are needy people, I am without love. I'm spiritually impoverished. Then I'm not looking for love. I'm looking to take a hostage. You're mine. I've got you. Don't pay attention to anybody else. You meet all my needs. Who can do that? But if you're secure in yourself, then you're capable of giving. Start loving people. I don't mean sleeping with everybody. I mean loving people. There's a difference. Practice loving. Wonderful energy. It's your self nature. Does that help?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I'm not saying I don't need love. I'm just going to stay home and watch Netflix. That's not the same. We need to practice loving people, practice genuinely caring for people. Every mother loves her children. Believe me, there are times when she probably feels like throwing it out the window. But she doesn't. She continues to walk and try to comfort it if it's wailing and crying. Even if it's kept her up all night long. In that sense, the love is a commitment, it's an action. We want to learn to love as God loves. God has no taste. God loves people you and I would have nothing to do with. All right, so vancha, wanting. You want to give up this idea of want stuff, smashing the idea that's what's wrong with my life is I don't have what I want. And it can get subtle. And after a while, if you're on the path for a bit, the ego starts to use the path itself as a possession. So, for example, we've talked about Swadharma as an important part of the path. But then ego will say, I won't be happy until I find my Swadharma. You can be a paraplegic, a quadriplegic, and still be content. Pay attention to what you enjoy, where you feel useful. Just keep at it. Not everybody gets to have the meaningful job that's going to change the world. Doesn't happen. Some people do. The rest of us make a living. Cannot figure out, do what you love, practice loving what you're doing. Smash the idea that what's wrong with my life is I'm in the wrong company. I am the wrong boss. You're going to end up doing what your product, what your karma impels you into doing, with its successes and failures. All right. Everybody understand this idea of giving up wants. I prefer rasam. You'll have preferences. She does not bring me rasam, I will be fine. Next one. Next idea.
He who is free from want and then pure.
Yeah. So we want to look at this in two ways. Ultimately, the equipment can never be pure. And you are already pure. Your self-nature is near malam without any dirt or taint. But when the mind is covered by tamas, ignorance, rajas, agitation, mind is pained. We let go of rajas and tamas, reducing our attachments, reducing the frequency and the volume of thought. As the mind gets pure, we see the self for what it is, we see the world for what it is. We have clarity of vision. Now, what we mean by it doesn't mean that you've read Mantra Upanishad and then you go out Saturday night and you get totally wasted. It doesn't work that way. So the yogi leads a moderate life. Don't eat too much, don't eat too little. Sleep too much, don't sleep too little. Lead a moderate, simple life. And you will find that if you live more purely. You don't get a gold star from the Guru. Oh, yes. Trevor is the purest among you. No, you'll just be happier. Just be happy. Fill your life with a lot of demands, responsibilities, stuff. And it took me a long time to figure it out. Every time I buy something, especially with the credit card, now I've got to pay for it, which means work. All right, next idea.
Alert.
Being woke. So I was talking with a student who actually did a japa retreat at the Chinmay Mission Center in Coimbatore in India for a month, meditating 4 hours a day. And the suggestion was at least 2 hours after you do japa using a mantra. And the teacher, the Swamini there, gave them a very interesting assignment. She said, watch what comes up in your sitting practice that repeats, because there's where your vasanas are. She said, write them down, journal it. This is what you need to work on. Is food recipes keep coming up. It's money stuff. Is that what comes up? What a former boyfriend or girlfriend says. The house coming up. Very interesting practice. Seeing what those vasanas are. So the yogi wants to be very aware of her mind. Being able to be completely aware of stuff as it comes up out of the unconscious. One of the purposes of meditation is to make the unconscious conscious. The knots of the heart come up out of the unconscious into our field of awareness. Just to move and hold in compassionate awareness. Don't keep shoving them down. This is where, for some of us, therapy can be of value. Because what does it do? It helps you become aware of your issues. But you quit running. And it's incredibly difficult, but most important maxim. It's a spiritual axiom that if I am disturbed, no matter the cause, I'm the one with the attachment, expectation, control issue, identification. Now listen carefully. I did not say they're right and you're wrong. The world and its people are oftentimes quite wrong. But nobody has the power to make you feel anything. You permit it. You allow. And what does ego say? They made me feel blah, 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 blah. He made me feel blah, blah, blah. Maybe do that. Never true. It's only when we get triggered, we have a button. I have an attachment. I have an identification. So you want to be conscious. Pay attention. The overall frame for this practice is called Sakshi Bhavana. Bhavana means an attitude or a feeling. Take on the attitude or the feeling of the witness. Notice, oh, I have an aversion here. Oh, I have difficulty with this person. Oh, I'm impatient here. Now, I have news for you. You can run, but you cannot hide. If we are unwilling to face an issue that we have and deal with it, practice our vairagya, our dispassion, our detachment. No blame, don't worry. You can run from it. You can get rid of that person. You can quit that job. You can break up with that partner. But it will come back. Who here got upset at something this week? Tell me it's the first time you felt that way. It's so repetitive. As long as the ego says, they didn't do me, they have the power to make me feel. No hope. Fight. You can run. Shut down. Unless we deal with it.
What's the best way to get out of like a thought loop like that? Like if you're really upset at someone, because like when I get upset, like I rationally know like that, okay, whatever, just you could be cool about this, or you could blame them and just be angry. But like I can't seem to get out of the anger because it's very deep seated.
It is. Of course, it's deep seated. And understanding where it came from doesn't make it go away. Oh, yes, this is when I was over affectionate to my hobby horse and my older brother took it from me. Doesn't help. What do is you sit, just don't do something, stand there. Just don't do something, sit there and feel it. Be present to it. It's not you. Just be present to it. And it's a form. It's a created thing. So guess what? It cannot endure. It will not last unless you continue to reinfect your mind. Well, I should say to him, how could he do that to me? You keep running the tape. And if it repeats, you just sit there, don't believe it. Know that it's just a tape. It does no good to try to fix the other person. You've been with your partner 4 years?
Yes.
Have you been able to change him and fix him yet?
No.
How long have you and Jack been together?
4 years.
Have you been able to fix him? That is wisdom. That is wisdom. It doesn't mean our partners don't annoy us. But if we're annoyed, we have the issue. We always used to say, you can't teach a pig to sing. It doesn't work and it annoys the pig. Takes many of us a long time.
Jim, could I ask a question about this? Though?
Sure.
What if, for example, let's say you work in the social justice field, and let's say you're fighting against some type of racial discrimination, whatever, worker exploitation, whatever the topic you want. Shouldn't that make you feel some sort of anger and injustice? Because I know what you're saying, which is if I'm angry, I'm the one with attachment. But in that case, shouldn't it be
You need
appropriate?
to study Gandhi.
Okay.
It used to really upset the people who were working with him when he refused to get angry at or hate the British. And he wanted them to leave. It doesn't mean we don't fight. Gandhi was not a pacifist. He was non-violent in his activism.
I guess the idea of not feeling strong emotions when those topics come up seem to me a little bit inhuman. Does that make sense?
Whatever you wish. My suggestion is go rent the movie Gandhi.
I've read his autobiography actually.
Go rent the
Okay.
movie. Go
Okay.
rent the movie because it's, for me, it's different when you see it.
Okay.
And Ben Kingsley is amazing. There's footage where you can't tell the difference between him and historical footage of Gandhi. It is so freaky. And have you seen the film?
A long time ago.
Yeah, it's held up well. But you get to watch Gandhiji put his satyagraha, is what he called it. You remember that probably from school.
Yeah.
Did they teach you that in school back in New Zealand?
Not in New Zealand, but I learned it before I moved.
Yeah. What does satyagraha mean?
An urge for truth.
Graha means to grab or to hold on, holding fast to satyam, truth. But if you're going to work in the field of activism, it's very important. And let me just show you some very clear differences. Now, many people who are activists in India today, he's fallen out of favor.
Gandhi, right?
Gandhi, yes,
Mm.
Mahatma Gandhi, Mohandas K. Gandhi. But there was a very important person in the American civil rights movement whose name was Bayard Rustin. Most of you have probably never even heard of him. Anybody here? Have you heard of him, Trevor?
No.
He was Black and gay. So because he was gay, he was always kept out of the public eye because of the homophobia of the period. He went to India and lived with Gandhiji and studied Gandhi's nonviolent activism. He's the one who came back to the States and introduced Dr. Martin Luther King to these ideas. And that was the impetus for Dr. King to go to India and meet Gandhiji. And the entire early civil rights movement, where people would cross the bridge to Selma, the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and they were beaten. John Lewis had his skull cracked, and they did not fight. Those sitting at the lunch counters, and they would be hauled off to jail and beaten. Nonviolence, nonviolence. They would not fight back. Totally different than when people are rampaging through Oakland after someone was killed by the police and destroying property right and left. Some people think violence is an effective tool. Anger, we have a right to be angry. But Gandhiji said we have to learn to set that aside. And they would practice in this country. They would have mock demonstrations where people would come up and taunt them and throw water on them and stuff like that. And you learn to not react with anger. You learn to return good for evil. I'm making this up. But if you're in the field of political activism, my hope is that at least some people will re-embrace those principles of the early civil rights movement. It's incredibly powerful. It freed a nation. It freed a nation. Britain was the most powerful country in the world, with the biggest, strongest, most powerful army. And they elected to walk out because it just stopped working. Now, you can feel whatever you wish to.
Very helpful, Jim. Thank you.
There's one scene in the film where Gandhiji gets angry with his wife, almost hits her. Doesn't mean he was not without anger. And the movie starts when he's in South Africa, when he's thrown off the train. Just go watch the movie. It's a great movie. And if you haven't seen it it must be what, 40 years old by now?
At least 35. Yeah.
But it holds up well. And for those people involved in the field of political activism, I think it's an incredibly important film to read and to read his works. All right, next idea. We need to finish this chapter.
Unconcerned.
Yes. So I love what Swami Tejo Mayananda says. The ignorant person doesn't take life seriously. The intelligent person takes life seriously. The wise person seriously doesn't take life seriously. Watch the movie. Keep your heart cool. Have this samadrishta, this equality of vision. Now, back to your things. Well, Isn't it human to feel X, Y, and Z? Is it human when you need your heroin to rob a bank and shoot people? Is it?
Question, Gil.
I think it's human because humans do it.
Yeah.
That's the answer. Any of you seen Les Mis or read the book Les Miserables? What does the bishop do when Jean Valjean wants to steal the candlestick from the church? Any of you remember? He gives him the other one. That's human too.
He gives him the other one.
Yes. He follows the gospel. That's human too. It's all human. But that doesn't mean we as yogis are not engaged in what Swamiji would call the art of man-making, the art of cultivating what it is to be truly human. Good question. Very good question. Next idea, or are we done?
No, this. Untroubled.
It's all going to work out. I love what Ram Dass says. Even dying is completely safe. It's all going to work out. All right, next verse.
Wait, there's more.
Ah,
Renouncing all undertakings or commencements.
oh, okay. This is a subtle one. It doesn't mean we never do anything. We're passive. We just let life bang us around. No, of course we have our goals. Of course we have plans. But here it means if we begin an undertaking with the idea, this is what's going to make me happy. Just make it different. That's all we do.
But then, what sort of North Star do we use if we don't use happiness as a North Star for our pursuits?
You're going to do what you're going to do, impelled by your force of the past, which will communicate through your desires, actualizing who you are as a human being. But if you think that's what's wrong with my life and I haven't done that, or you think that's the end all and be all of life, it's foolishness. There's a difference between a desire to express, to create, to share, and a fundamental spiritual poverty. I have to have this, must have that. God help anybody who gets in my way. Can you feel the difference?
But that makes us a little stoic, no?
Well, true Stoicism is very close to the Vedanta. I mean, if you really look at the Greek philosophy of Stoicism, it has a bad rap today because it means someone who has no feelings. I look at Swamiji. He worked tirelessly. They posted on Facebook once. I think it was one of his day planner days. What his day looked like. He got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, answered every letter ever written to him personally. Early days in his own hand. Later he would dictate them because there were hundreds. His personal sadhana, worked tirelessly. He had this vision. India is now free. Now we need to free Indians. That's how we used to frame it. He wanted to give the Vedanta back to the Indian people because they lost it, caught up in ritual and looking to the West, thinking, oh, Western materialism is the answer. Was he successful? Priya says, oh, the Chinmaya Mission people in New Jersey are Trump supporters now. Not sure that's where he thought it would end up.
Wow.
Who knows? But you go back to our 5 elements of karma yoga. Act in the world. How? According to your swadharma, your inherent latent proclivities. In the yajna spirit. Dedicate your activity to something greater than yourself. Serve. Serve the society. Renouncing your attachment to the fruits. And renouncing your identification with the sense of agency. That's how we're designed to act in the world. It's a great design for living. So now you own a condo. Are you happy?
Not significantly more. I mean, I like my kitchen, but that's about it.
It's just different. There'll be some benefits. You'll accrue some equity. And there'll be big responsibilities. You can't call the landlord and say, fix the plumbing. It's just different. That's all. All right, next idea, or is that all of it?
Yeah, it just concludes with he who is thus devoted to me is dear to me.
So we practice these principles. What does it do? It maximizes sattva. Remember, the sattvic mind is the one where the nature of the self is very clear. Who I am. I am that space of consciousness that's never done. I know what the world is. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya, Brahman alone is real, the phenomenal world, the forms are illusory. And Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, as Chandogya says. And it's all gone. All right, next verse.
So verse 17. Yona rishyati na dveshti na shochati na kankshati shubha shubha parityagi bhaktimanya same priyaha. He who neither rejoices nor hates nor grieves nor desires, renouncing good and evil, full of devotion, is dear to me.
Yes. So again, he's riffing on this idea of the equality of vision. we turn the volume level down on our reactivity to the world. When I had a business back in 1980, I used to be kind of weirded out and worried. Oh my God, you know, the toilet isn't working. So and so didn't come to work, and blah, 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 blah. And finally, my business partner, because my job, part of it was day-to-day management, he said, Jim, you have to understand that small business management is daily crisis management. That's just what you do every day. Deal with the crisis that's right there. Oh, okay. Treat your life that way. This is the problem that's come up. My job is to solve the problem, find a solution. Not necessary to get upset. We talked about this earlier. Not giving away the power to other people to make us feel it. I have a friend, Susan, who's a Sufi. She's really, really sharp. I love her. And it's so funny when someone tries to guilt trip her or something like that. She just laughs and says, gee, aren't you powerful? You know, just not buying that crap. Stand back. Swamiji thought people were funny. He didn't get upset with people. He sure laughed at us. And he was an incredible mimic. We had something going on. Middle of a lecture, it's like he read our minds. And he would act out that particular issue. We would laugh at ourselves. Laugh at ourselves. The idea, keep this equality of vision. Sometimes it works. Sometimes life doesn't work. Yoga is not about hitting all the green lights of life. That's an illusion. I'm spiritual. I'll always get what I want. Everybody will always be nice to me. And there will never be any calamities. It doesn't work that way. You're going to get what the force of your past has generated. You get your allotted dose of joys and sorrows, gains and losses, crises, etc. Doesn't have to touch us. Any thoughts on this? Next idea, or next verse.
The next two verses are together.
Pardon me?
The next two shlokas are together.
Oh, okay.
And in fact, the preface says, in a last wave of enthusiasm, Krishna enumerates.
Wave of enthusiasm.
Sama kshatro cha mitre cha tatha manapamanayo shitoshna sukha dukkheshu samasanga vivarjati tulya nindastuti mauni santushto yena kenachit aniketah Sthiramatir bhaktiman me priyo naraha. He who is the same to foe and friend, and also in honor and dishonor, who is the same in cold and heat, and in pleasure and pain, who is free from attachment, to whom censure and praise are equal, who is silent, content with anything, homeless, steady-minded, full of devotion, that man is dear to me.
Yes. And again, the idea is if we develop these qualities, we feel God's presence, the bliss of Brahman more readily. So what he's done here is he's, in the language of poetry, talked about our physical pairs of opposites, calls it heat and cold, but all the physical things that could happen to us, positive and negative. Emotional things, sukham, dukham. Swami usually translates it as pleasure and pain. I think of pain as physical. I prefer to translate it as pleasure and suffering. When the environment is conducive, the mind feels pleasure. When the environment is non-conducive, the mind suffers. Stand back, watch that mechanical thing. Honor and dishonor are conclusions the intellect makes. Success and failure, honor and dishonor, praise and censure. I'm okay, I'm not okay. Not getting involved. Way to heal the mind is to get out of the mind. Stay identified as the witness. Watch the world go by. Understanding that it's all going to change. Oh, Jim, I'm having such a terrible time. Don't worry, it'll pass. Oh, Jim, I'm having such a wonderful time. Don't worry, it will pass. So we have one more?
Should I go ahead?
Yes.
Ye tu dharmyamritamidam yathoktam paryupasate shraddhana matparama bhaktaste tiva me priyaha. They indeed who follow this immortal dharma, the law of life, as described above, endowed with faith, regarding me as their supreme goal, such devotees are exceedingly dear to me.
So this is a recipe for an intelligent life. It's funny, I was talking with someone about gurus who are so directive. You know, you should marry so and so. You should go into business with so and so. You should go here. I used to think, why doesn't Swamiji ever do that with me? Maybe he doesn't care. And then I realized he was telling me what to do all the time. That's all he ever did, was tell me what to do. Follow this path of the Dharma. Here's a list of things to do. So you can go back into the 12th chapter. Each one of these ideas implies a practice. A wonderful frame. If we practice these things, I promise you, your life will change. You'll have more peace, more joy, more freedom, more happiness. It will seem like you are dear to the Lord. But it isn't that the Lord has come to you, it's that you have come to Him. All right, there's a little Upanishad at the end. Om Tat Sat.
Om
Srimad.
Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagwad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjun Samvade Bhakti Yogo Nama Dvadashodhyayah. Thus in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagwad Gita, in the science of the eternal, in the scripture of yoga, in the dialogue between Shri Krishna and Arjuna, the 12th discourse ends entitled The Yoga of Devotion.
One of the most famous chapters, and short, it's only 20 verses. 20 verses. Many people memorized it. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Sri Guru Namaha Hari Om. Thank you all.